Hey everyone, welcome. This is Cindy at an open door. It's Monday, January 27th. This is the hour we have labeled where the rubber meets the road. And curious to see what happens in this hour, since now is the only moment that exists. My attempt to future plan a teaching about the present moment being the only one that existed was all but impossible. But I got this much. When I sat this morning to thinking it was close enough, I was told, I was given the song. I had to sit a little with why this song. And I'll tell you what it is in a moment because it's not in our playlist because it's a Disney song. And you actually can't share so you can't share YouTube videos that were created for children on different playlists, even when they're animated. It's just a YouTube rule. So if there's a button that you click that says made for children, you can't add it to other playlists. Um, this song is from Mulan. It's called Reflections. And it's a favorite here. It speaks to the pain and suffering of attempting to be something other than who you are. It also speaks to um, how whenever we attempt to be something for somebody else, A, it fails, and B, we're misperceiving what others expect from us. And when I really sat with it relative to this teaching about being me here now, the song fits beautifully. So I'm gonna put us on pause for a minute, and we can spend a few minutes with this song. Um, and then what I was told, we're only talking about a couple of lines here. Um, we're gonna sit quietly and read this section a couple of times into our space, and then we'll see what happens. I don't have Barbie here to remind me to hit record again, but I'm sure somebody else will. Just for anyone who may not have seen Mulan, she ends up cutting all her hair off, goes on the hero's journey, saves all of China, restores her family's honor, and ends up with the guy. So when she goes ahead and discovers who she is, great movie. All right. So, oh, Michelle times two. When I opened the book, this is interesting because as anybody knows who's listened to me, I picked the topic for this meeting at random. I just sort of opened the book. Usually I open the book and I scan the 2 pages and something pops up. This week, I don't remember opening the book, but the book was open. I walked by it and looked down and these words like lit up. Like I don't even know how that happened, but I'm trusting it. Um, I don't ever remember reading these words like this before, but that's okay. I don't know all of the book. So, um, like I said, when I sat this morning, the only instruction I got relative to how to share this was the song, and then to simply read these words into our meeting twice, slowly, and then see what happens. So here we go. Fear is not of the present, but only of the past and future, which do not exist. There is no fear in the present when each instant stands clear and separated from the past, without its shadow reaching out into the future. Each instant is a clean, untarnished birth in which the Son of God emerges from the past into present, and the present extends forever. It is so beautiful and so clean and free of guilt that nothing but happiness is there. No darkness is remembered, and his immortality and joy are now. One more time. Fear is not of the present, but only of the past and future, which do not exist. There is no fear in the present when each instant stands clear and separated from the past, without its shadow reaching out into the future. Each instant is a clean, untarnished birth in which the Son of God emerges from the past into the present. And the present extends forever. It is so beautiful and so clean and free of guilt that nothing but happiness is there. No darkness is remembered, and his immortality and joy are now. Curious in this moment if there's anything that you have a sense of needing to change in order for you to know the truth of who you are. And if something comes up, whether or not you can find that something here, i.e., is it something that needs to change that doesn't that is free of a story about when it was created or and free of what's going to happen later. Anything?
You know, I think I could be wrong, but what I'm sensing from all of us, Cindy, is that we've all just gone right into the center of the wheel together. And there's nothing more that needs to be said. We're just basking with each other in each other. And I barely even want to take the energy to say these words.
Andrew.
Thank you. What comes to my mind is we have to be totally devoid of the ego to be free of fear. I think the ego is a fearful idea. You know, ego represents death, basically, a temporary life. That's what we have to do. We have to be devoid of the ego. You know, when I read what we were going to read today, I looked at the chapter, and what I really love is the first sentence of this section. Can you imagine what it means to have no cares, no worries, no anxieties, but merely to be perfectly calm and quiet all the time? And yet that is what time is for, to learn that and nothing more. So that's the goal of the course, and that's what time is for us to learn that. But I have a lot of work to do to get free of my ego, that's for sure. That's what I've got to add. Thank you.
There's David, I'm gonna give it all to you in just a second. There is something I've learned from reading Paul Selick and the Guides, which I now spend time with every day. And I'm gonna see if the words come through correctly. It is that the only moment I can realize who I am is this one. That's, I think I got the quote right. Um, and in this moment now, well, I've learned when I've looked very carefully is that the ego or the conditioned mind never exists now. It doesn't, I've attempted, and this whole body will shake. Um, the sense of a me separate doesn't seem to be in alignment or resonance with the present moment. It doesn't drop into this moment that has no past or future. And so there are moments when my ego is very loud, and perhaps because of this practice and trusting this teaching, I don't try to change it. I just choose to be in the present moment, and I watch this like body mind system shake and contract and do all sorts of things because the ego just, she doesn't know how to hang out here. Hmm. There's so many things happening in my space right now. It's crazy. Hey, David, you'll have to unmute. You know that,
I
right?
will. Okay. Well, to paraphrase Popeye the Sailor Man, I am that I am, and that's all that I am. And to add to that, I wouldn't be adding to that. I can only subtract from that because there's nothing that can be added. But if I think about that, it lessens who I am or what is. And so it's almost like, you can't, like Amy said, you can't think about that and make it better. You can only, like I say, you can only make it weaker. So just be there. And like I said, like Popeye said, he knew this back in 1930 something. We just are, and there's nothing else to be. And I've spoken.
Now that Ron is here, I'm going to read those lines into the group again, unless somebody else would like to. Does a different voice, would a different voice like to read these words? Are you pointing at me or somebody else? Okay, because you're okay. And then we'll see what happens next. Here we go. Man, I love this moment. Fear is not of the present. Fear is not of the present, but only of the past and future, which do not exist. There is no fear in the present when each instant stands clear and separated from the past without its shadow reaching out into the future. Each instant is a clean, untarnished birth in which the Son of God emerges from the past into the present. And the present extends forever. And the present extends forever. It is so beautiful and so clean and free of guilt that nothing but happiness is there. No darkness is remembered, and his immortality and joy are now. Well, because it's still here, I'm going to share it, even though it's not Thursday yet, it's now. I've started to work with this beautiful conversation between Tara Brach and Dan Segal. And I say it that way, work with, because at one point when I was listening, and this is the podcast for the Thursdays, Finding Truth Everywhere, at one point, I'm like listening to them going, I wonder if Amy would lead, because this is way over my technical desire to blah, blah, blah. But here's why it's alive in me right now. I'm so grateful for the recommendation. And what I heard and what is so beautiful within the space that I find myself in here with you, the moment, is that Dan, in his real soft-spoken way, said that there is a space and a purpose to Newtonian physics. I'm here in this world of form and I get into the car. It's very useful for me to follow the Newtonian rules and not drive into another car with this expectation I'm going to go right through it. At the same time, it's not an either or. That's the space that this conversation between the two of them have lit up for me. It's not an either or. So this space of quantum physics, I think is the verbiage he used. But in my writing this morning, I was sitting right there in supreme Brahman, pure consciousness. But that's here too, this timeless, eternal spaciousness, where there is the formless. That is here too. And then my mind was going, well, is it the Newtonian part, the form that is rising and falling within the formless? Is that, is the formless what's real and the form is temporary? But that's not what Dan said. And that's not what's alive in me. And that was way too many words for this experience. What he said was, they're both here. And how extraordinary that I don't have to choose which one to be in at any given moment. There's just this sense that in the present moment, and right away, I hear Sandra's voice in my head, because every time I do this, I hear Sandra. In this present moment, all I'm being asked to do is stop thinking and be fully present with the present moment, even if it's irritation of the dog barking or the feeling of sensations in the body or the sense that I'm being held by something extraordinary that I can't understand. It's all here in this moment. There's nothing that needs to be rejected in the present moment. And even these thoughts of the past or the future, when I hold them here, they're not about the past and they're not about the future. There's a memory arising here that I can hold energetically. Sort of like, my daughter's first grade teacher sending me this picture of my girls having a tea party when they were 5 and 6, right? I don't remember being there, but there's this experience of love. I can see how happy they were. And there's it's not a memory and a wishing I was somewhere else. It's bringing that memory into this moment now and allowing the love and the childlike wonder to explode here now.
Yes.
That sort of touches it, right, Sandra, what you've been sharing? You're unmuted though, so we can hear you. So you go ahead and don't mute, talk. Yeah.
Oh, talk. What Amy said was so perfect. I'm just, what did she say? In the center of the wheel? It was almost like no words are necessary anymore. Um, I loved the song. When will my reflection show who I am? Right now, when I know who I am, that's when. When I know who I am. And I know, we know, it's not an I anymore, it's a we. We know who we are. And we're sitting in the center of the wheel. We're sitting there. And we're just marinating in your words, but more than your words. We're marinating in the vibration that you're sending, that you're radiating. That's all I've got. You must have unmuted me. I didn't unmute me.
You never actually muted, Sandra, from when we were in
Oh.
a conversation before we hit record, you never. But there's no need to mute yourself at all. So, Amy,
The feeling of, oh, I'm finding myself grasping right now. And what I'm grasping for is that instant of peace and wholeness right after you read the first time. And the awareness came into my mind that we were all together and everything was silent. And I just sank into that, knowing that we were all sharing this space together. And it filled me with so much joy and peace. And I find myself wanting to go back there and wanting to grasp that again. And that was, it's then such a paradox to this teaching, actually. Right? But I read down and into paragraph 11, if I could read that. it says, time is inconceivable without change, and holiness does not change. Learn from this instant more than merely that hell does not exist. In this redeeming instant lies heaven, and heaven will not change, for the birth into the holy present is salvation from change. Heaven will not change, for the birth into the holy present is salvation from change. I'm going to cry. Change is an illusion taught by those who could not see themselves as guiltless. There is no change in heaven because there is no change in God. If that isn't a non-dual teaching, I don't know what is. It's such a powerful illusion that we have created for ourselves. And there's a part of me that's so excited about that. It's like, wow, look what we did. And yet the truth of it is, through my own experience, I am learning even more deeply that only when I include everyone else as myself, everything else as myself, does my happiness increase. And only when I allow this holy instant to be my centering ground does my happiness increase. Thank you. Ron, it's
Thank
good to
you.
see you here.
Good morning. Well, I love when I turn to this book now as we point to different places to look and I get to see what was written in the margins before the last time, you know? And so like there's these big arrows all along the margin on the right that says the holy instant, which, you know, became my jam kind of right from the get-go because I was just amazed at how pausing and thinking about truth rather than the story had the ability to just bring on a sense of peace that I had never discovered before in the middle of worldly experiences. So grateful for that. And listening to Amy, this really just dropped into my heart that holiness is outside of time. You know, like that just feels really clear right now. And time is an illusion. It says in the paragraph 8, but it's a teaching device. So, you know, like everything's included, everything has its part to all this. And Michelle had mentioned in the chat about each instant is a clean, untarnished birth. You know, when I bring my focused attention into this now moment, there is a like, oh, okay. You know, allowing the seriousness of the world to drop away for a moment and just keep my head where my feet are, which is a saying that we use in recovery a lot. What really keeps running for me every time I've read this, and this is probably now the 5th time since it was sent in the weekly email. It says, and the present extends forever. And there's a real visceral feeling that I'm experiencing when I consider that short, very short sentence. It's like a grounding in the present moment and then an expansion. And I pulled a little angel card yesterday because I was just feeling that way, a little fun. Let's have a little fun. Let's pull an angel card, see what it says. I have a stack of them that just have one word, pointings. And yesterday's was expansiveness. And I paused and I thought, yeah, I'm ready. I'm willing. You know, however that wants to show up. And so perfect with this. The present extends forever. And what happens is there's a grounding, but there's a movement. There's a feeling of just, it's all here now, you know, and it's all included. Oh, and my legs are tingling now. So that either means shut up or you're hitting something and you just shut up anyway. But I love you all, and my healing is going extraordinary well. And no doubt it is because of all the love that has been shared in our connectedness. You know, that's what I'm seeing today is the connectedness. So thank you.
Thank you. Love you.
Love you.
Hey, Chuck. Good to be in this now moment with you.
Yeah, I just got a short share. I'm in kind of amazement and awe. 2 days ago, I think it was, a YouTube thing from Rupert Spira just popped into my phone, and I watched a little bit and I wrote it down. And everything that's happened since then seems to just kind of been enhancing this. And some of what Amy almost said. This is in his thing that he was doing was when he said, peace and happiness is the nature of your being, and you share that with everyone and everything. And everything that's happened since then has just been blowing me away because it all sounds like the same thing.
Beautiful.
Sounds like you're in the flow, Chuck. Don't you just love that? I just love it. Oh,
Blowing
you.
me away.
You got to love Rupert too. You just got to love him.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. He's a phenomenal teacher, but he's just a man. Just, you know, he's a person, just like all of us. Just like David.
He just has better hair.
David, your hand is up. You're being called.
Well, I intended to be up for a change. So what I've been writing down. I said first of all, I wrote down there is no past. And the holy instant is always. But then that still is an instant. So then I decided to do some more paraphrasing, and I'm going to paraphrase John Mayer. And so everything is the holy now. It just, it's always now, it's always holy, and it's always now. And if I always pay attention, that'll be a good thing. That's all I have.
Shall we listen to that song? Should we take a song interlude and listen to that song and see if something else comes up? All right, give me a second and we'll hit
I
pause
shared
again.
this song with Kylie's caregiver, and she's Christian. They listen to a lot of Christian music, but she hadn't heard this before, and she came back and she started like giving me music now to play for you guys. So it's fun, you know, that it's what it started. So beautiful. Love music.
All right, here we go. Let me hit pause. All right, I went 45 minutes without saying this. Now I get to say it. Richard, happy Monday.
Hi, everybody. Great shares, great subject. I'm just enjoying the moment of being one with all of us, and I love you, all of us, and have a great day.
It's an interesting paradox being in a meeting where we're all over the place. And so words are sort of what shows up on the recording. And yet it's not about words that we're spending this time with. So. Andrew.
Thanks. That song was beautiful. I never heard that. I really like it. But what comes to my mind? It's about living in this world without fear. That's basically, you know, what we started with is there's no cause for fear in the present. And it can be done, but the ego really resists that because when you think about how the Course describes heaven, it's eternal peace and nothing more. There's a section that says that peace and joy and quiet. To the ego, that doesn't even sound appealing sometimes, you know, but it's our reality. And the ego is the illusion. We're dreaming. We're eternal spirits. We're eternal, limitless, and free spirit. But we're dreaming a dream that we're something else. And it's that simple. And if we could keep that in mind all the time, really, there's nothing to fear. That's my take on it. Thank you. I love you all.
I love us too. Sandra.
I remembered something when we were reading this, because it talks about, in paragraph 8, it talks about there is no hell. When my mother was in hospice and they had her on a lot of morphine, which they do. And so she didn't really speak a lot, but the day before she died, I was sitting there with her holding her hand, and she sat up. And she sat up and she looked at me. And I was thinking that, you know, I guess I was anticipating like a loving message or something. And this is what she said. She said, "Sandra, there is no hell." And then she lay back down and went back to sleep. Now, we were raised Catholic, so that was, at the time, I thought, why is she telling me that? But now I get it.
Rana.
So this is fantastic, right? The reason I put that in the chat, that this whole page is beautiful nuggets, was because right before Sandra shared, my eyes had glanced over and I read the very first sentence on the page of the purple book. The Holy Spirit teaches thus: there is no hell. Hell is only what the ego has made of the present. And then you shared that. So, thank you, sweetheart.
I'm curious. As I sit here realizing that not all of us have children the same age as mine. How many people here have actually seen the movie Mulan? So is it okay if I just do my 2-minute higher level description of what the movie is? Disney's princess movies are so much more. They're not girly movies, by the way. If anyone ever believed that a Disney princess is a girly movie, they haven't watched Disney princess movies. But Mulan is the only child of a army officer and his wife in ancient China, the world of the Huns. And she was born a tomboy, loved riding the horses, and she was her father's child, and she has a very, very independent spirit. And the opening scene of the movie, it's time to meet the matchmaker, and the matchmaker is going to tell you your worth and give you the perfect husband. Only this chick doesn't wear makeup, doesn't know how to walk and cinch her, none of that stuff. And so she failed it miserably. She doesn't know how to be the quote unquote perfect daughter. And so there's this whole experience of intense failure because she's attempting to fit into a world that isn't hers. And that moves to the Huns attack, and the soldiers are moving through the town, and there has to be a man in every family that joins the service. And Dad, who is, it's like Richard. I'm now seeing Richard. He walks with a cane. He was a fabulous soldier. He is ready to do what he was told to do. And Mulan's like, that, right? And she's in a lot of pain. But she goes ahead, and when they're all asleep and she sees Mom and Dad arguing and Dad's ready to do what dads do, she goes and steals his sword and his uniform. She cuts her hair and she takes the horse, and all of a sudden she's a guy. It's very funny. And she's accompanied because the ancestors, we always have help. So this is ancient China. Her ancestor is a tiny little that they send to support her, a dragon about this size, who is Eddie Murphy. So it's a very entertaining movie. But she literally, during the course of becoming she didn't know how to, she couldn't even pick up the sword in the beginning, but she never gave up and never gave up. And she became the soldier who was leading and the head of the soldier. There's a lot of stories, but at one point she's caught. And she went from being everyone's best friend to an outcast because she's a sheep. And it was everything they could do not to kill her. So here's this ego death moment, right? Where they leave her and they go off. And what do you do at that point? She's totally rejected. The Huns are about to destroy all of China, and she was told she's all but dead. You know what she does? She goes and saves all of China anyway. And the emperor, in the end, hands her his crest, gives her back the sword, tells her that she is the honor and she can have whatever she wants in all of China. And then there's more because, she does get the hot guy in the end. He follows her home. So she gets everything, but generally it's a story of when you let go of thinking you have to be someone else's version of who they want you to be, because that's what the ego world says you're supposed to be because of how you look, and you follow everything you are anyway, you get to live happily ever after. Which reminds me of my favorite last line of any movie, which is the end of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Does anybody remember what the last line of that movie is? Willy Wonka looks at Charlie and he says, "You know what happens to the little boy when all of his dreams come true?" Charlie's looking at him, and they just took the Willy Wonka machine and they broke the glass ceiling, and they're flying and they're crazy, like over the town. Willy Wonka looks at him and he says, he lives happily ever after. Which again comes back to what this states, right? The present moment. I'm going to present extends forever. Present extends forever. Shall we read it one more time? Ronna bought me prisms last year for my birthday, and they're hanging in this mirror, and there are rainbows. I don't know if you can see them in my world, but there are rainbows on my page.
Hey, Cindy,
Yes.
this, I don't want to complicate things, but before you read that, and I realize we only have like 6 minutes left, but the concept that this moment holds all time, it's kind of a quantum concept. And I'm not suggesting that I just am moved to bring it up because my mind can't grasp that. Like every single moment that's ever unfolded and every experience that's attached to that, it all exists now, you know. And my little pea brain just can't, it just explodes with that thought. I'm just like, oh, I can't get it. And yet I can only feel my way into the answer. You know, I can sort of intuit it, but anyway, I just thought if anybody else has a better explanation than I can give sometime, doesn't have to be right now, but maybe somebody could. Here comes
Well,
Richard. I knew
yeah,
I could get Richard to say something.
I'm going to say something and then give it to Richard because I just read it. You know, Amy knows that I've been reading the guides every day, Paul Selick and the guides. And Paul is fun because he is allowing these messages come through, but he's arguing. He reminds me a little bit of Helen. You know, Helen let the messages come through and still, you know, left her life not fully trusting the message or living by it. But Paul had that same question. And the guides just, I'm on book 8 now, I think, and I don't know how many times I've heard the guides say to Paul, the little self will never understand this.
Yeah. Yep. What do you got, Richard?
I early on in the course had the same problem. And I love what the course says because reality is infinite, and we as the body mind are finite, and the finite mind will never understand the infinite. But we can experience the infinite, and that was the lesson of the course. So I'm content with experiencing it as much as I can. I don't need to understand it. It just is. So I hope that helps. That helped me for many years.
That's lovely. Thank you so much. I really like that. I can rest in that. Thank you.
It's beautiful. So shall we read? We have 3. Oh, go Ron.
I just wanted to express my gratitude to Amy and to all of you for being so honest about where you're at, you know, in direct experience of these things. I mean, it's just so helpful for me to get rid of this unworthy belief, you know, uncover that somehow. We're all just where we're at. And so I just wanted to express thanks for that.
I completely agree. And I think sometimes, you know, that's the beauty of this community. And my gratitude to Cindy for holding us all together. Just And my gratitude to all of you who have responded to Cindy's call and have stepped up to the plate. And because too often when we have this lauded teacher, we're afraid to ask, or we don't want to seem stupid. Or sometimes the teacher, I mean, even Rupert Spira, I asked him a question once, well, I asked him about where thoughts come from, and they just arrive on the screen of awareness. And he embarrassed me in front of a whole classroom of people. He said, I don't teach that anymore. He said, that's old thinking. And I actually said to him, well, Rupert, that was your teaching. And he said, I know, but I don't teach that anymore. I was like, well, what do I do with that? I felt like looking around the room and saying, well, is everybody else as dumb as me? Anyway, I laugh at it now, but it gets to exactly what Rhonda says. That's why I love us all so much. Really,
It's
really
not-
do.
Yeah, the new website is up. It includes a blog. It also includes my daily contemplations. And it was interesting as I was copying them because they're raw and they're honest. And they begin with, this is where I'm in pain, help me, And I recognize that whenever we hide our uncertainties or our pain or this day really sucks feelings, it's like putting a bandage over an infected sore. That's all it is. And so we're doing this together. And even though we're officially done, I'm still inspired to read this again before I hit the stop record. So I will. You could stay or not. I love us. Fear is not of the present, but only of the past and future, which do not exist. There is no fear in the present when each instant stands clear and separated from the past, without its shadow reaching out into the future. Each instant is a clean, untarnished birth in which the Son of God emerges from the past into the present, and the present extends forever. It is so beautiful and clean and free of guilt that nothing but happiness is there. No darkness is remembered, and his immortality and joy are now.